Ocean Man. Hello, welcome to the Ocean Man special of overdress news week day thing time. Today, as usual, we're going to go over all the overdress news from both today and the days before, and therefore give you a little bit of a weekly update on things going forward. So, we have a few things to do. We're going to look at today's reveals of the second Stoicheia archetype, and also, I guess, ModiP's tweet about, all the, the 10 different decks that are going to be coming out with the starter decks and the booster set combined. We're going to recap on all the reveals from the previous days leading into this week and any other information that has popped up along the way. Also, apparently 35% of you that watch my videos are not subscribed, so if you could do that, that would be really cool because I'm close to 40k and would like to reach it sometime soon. Thank you. Anyway, let's recap on the reveals from the last week and yesterday before we go into the new cards. So first things first, as with every time, they kind of show us the starter deck cards, they show the supporting cards right after. So we got the supporting grade 3 for Brent Gate, which was the Alert Guard Gunner. So this one says when his attack hits a Vanguard on rearguard circle, you choose up to 2 of your opponent's rearguards and imprison them. So that was immediate support for the Brent Gate mechanic of imprisoning units and then making your opponent pay tax to get them out. So it's pretty good. On hit to basically pop 2 is pretty good because you essentially force them to count +1 afterwards to actually free them. And this being free is also really, really nice. There being no cost on an on hit like this is really cool. There's not much power going on in this deck, but at the same time, it's all right, I'd say. Then they revealed Platinum Wolf, which, might seem simple. Act Soul Blast 2, gain 5k. In overdress, this will probably be nothing. Honestly, in overdress, this probably won't do that much. In premium, however, this is probably one of the easiest enablers for the loops and infinite power as it gets. So yeah, I look forward to seeing the week 1 meta for premium after these starter decks come out, because I can already see that Genesis is going to become even better than it already is, and it's already at tier 0 status. So there's that. Autonomic Caution was another Brand Gate card. This time it's a grade 1, which says rearguard circle, guardian circle. If one or more of your opponent's cards is imprisoned, this unit gets power +2k, shield +5k. So yeah, you have to imprison something to get base shield power of grade 1 from V series, which is interesting. This probably won't be run that much, although it's a nice little card, but the power +2k feels like it's kind of lackluster. A lot of these cards gain 2k from the starter deck, but I guess they're starter cards, so it's nothing that, surprising. Another thing that happened was that the Festival Collection 2021 now has an English release date of June 25th. So they randomly dropped this last week as well, so that was really nice of them to do. We basically now know that after the overdress booster set, the first booster set comes out in late May, we have about 1 month until the festival collection, so that's also pretty cool. You get a little bit of support to the first booster set of stuff, and then we go into the second booster set after that. Then this was probably the thing that made me happiest, which was that from the Gekkan Bushiroad magazine, we actually found out that blitz orders are not gone. So blitz orders are being printed again because Stoicheia's starter deck's order is Call of the Beasts. So this is a blitz order, which means you play it during your opponent's attack, and it basically says one of your units gets +5k until end of battle, just like Quick Shield. However, if you have 3 or more back row rear guards, it becomes 11k instead. So this card itself, it's okay. It's an 11k shield, basically another trigger in your deck as a grade 2. I think, that itself is fine. It's nothing super spectacular, but the fact that this confirms that blitz orders are coming back, and they will be specific to each nation as well, is so cool. This means that they can print a Denial Griffin blitz order for Dragon Empire, and it won't even seem that weird because we've all been waiting for more blitz orders. They only printed Quick Shield, and everyone was like, is that it? No more blitz orders? So thank God, honestly. I think most of us are happiest about this, that blitz orders are actually coming back, and they're not being just or not even coming back, they're just being printed. That's what I should be saying. And then the final order that we hadn't found out yet was, of course, the Keter Sanctuary one, and this was the Hour of Holy Judgment Cometh. And this is basically a Pot of Greed. You count +2 to play it, and then you draw 2 cards, give a unit +5k until end of turn. A lot of us expected this to be another set order that basically gave shield to your grade 3s, but I've heard from people that have been playtesting the Keter Sanctuary starter deck saying that the shield power isn't really a problem, and this deck actually feels very, very fun because of how much power it just dishes out and how kind of sacky, I guess it can be because of all the grade 3s. So honestly, I'm cool with it. I mean, if that's, again, this is the starter deck, so I was expecting something, but at the same time, I'm not super surprised, so I'm okay with it. I think it's actually pretty nice that they actually printed, this kind of Pot of Greed, I guess, for Keter Sanctuary of all things, so yeah, why not? Then Stoicheia got another grade 2 from their starter deck revealed, which basically says Soul Blast 1, Counter Blast 1, gets boost and power +5k. So either another 15k attacker or a big booster for the back row. So it doesn't really mesh well with their back row attack type mechanic, but I guess that's only meant for their like turn 4. So for their turn 3, I guess you're basically like still powering up your units to actually like push them to 4 or so before you go in with the like multi-attacks from the back row the later turns. And of course, another important thing that happened before was that they showed a trailer for the starter decks, and people could pause and freeze frame and look at all the cards, and you know, we saw some like vanillas and stuff like that, and like random effects of like +1, gain extra shield and stuff like that. But they did show the triggers, and it looks like the triggers are indeed reminder texts. So a lot of us were hoping for effect triggers. Everyone was really hoping for that, although I guess there was nothing to really go off of other than there being text boxes on the actual triggers. But they are reminder text. They basically say what those triggers do, which I guess in a starter deck aimed at new players for such a cheap price, that makes sense, because normally when you have to like teach someone the game, you have to explain what each trigger does without it actually saying it on the card. So I guess now it's a bit easier to actually like teach someone. I still wonder why they don't put the persona ride explanation on the actual cards themselves, but I guess it's pretty self-explanatory. Like, you know, you just persona I guess is like duplicates, and then ride, you know, and then you just have to mention it's like, oh yeah, you draw and you put 10k to your front row. But yeah, that's was a little bit of a bummer, just a tiny bit, just a tiny little bit, but it's okay. I think a lot of us, you know, while we had expectations over nothing, at the same time it's okay. It still leaves a space to be explored in the future as well. Maybe that's just hopeless thinking though. And now before we take a look at today's actual reveals, I wanted to show you again a Keita Mori tweet. So he said, starting from this week's Shuvan, we'll be revealing cards from overdress booster volume 1. All 5 start decks will be powered up in that booster set. So basically all the 5 start decks will get support cards, probably like 1 triple and 1 double each, on top of a bunch of rares and commons, and brand new ride lines featured for each nation too. So that's what they're calling these aesthetics that we've been referring to, or clan representation that we've been referring to. They're basically calling them ride lines. So basically Stoicheia has 2 ride lines. They have the Magnolia, and now they have Ocean Man, or Zorga. I should probably refer to him by his real name. I also like to call him Ocean Jace, Underwater Jace. There's so many different things you can call this guy. But yeah, so basically they then put up a slide in the actual stream that said booster set 1 will have 10 different decks supported in total. So there's 10 different triple rares, so each triple rare will basically be a main unit, whether it's a main unit that's built around or a main unit that is supporting that starter deck. So we're gonna see as the weeks go by. You know, there's still a little while until this booster set is released, although in Japan I think it's coming out in like a month and a half, or a month only. I think it's actually pretty soon. So they gotta start ramping up these reveals just a little bit, I would say, because this set is really huge as well. So now, without any further ado, let's take a look at the actual new cards for Stoicheia that were revealed for this second ride line. And I'm gonna take things in a bit of a different order this time around, because they revealed things like the grade 1, then the grade 2, then both orders, and the grade 3. I want to show you the orders first, because I think that it makes more sense. So the first order that they showed for Stoicheia for this build was Spiritual Body Condensation. And I think Kai made the joke that this sounds like some kind of like shady medicine kind of title. But this is a grade 1 order that says Soul Blast 1, and choose a card with grade equal to or less than your Vanguard's grade from your drop, call it to Rearguard Circle, and it gets power plus 5k until end of turn. This is like Beatrice, but on a grade 1 order, which is pretty crazy, and it gives it extra power too. So in overdress standard, that's already really cool, but in premium, this is literally another copy of Beatrice in your deck that you don't even have to like clog up a space on your field for. You literally can just Soul Plus 1 cast this and revive something, which is pretty insane how like universal this card is. Like, this card feels really good, whether it's just randomly bringing back a Skull Dragon in late game, whether it's like fishing out a Columbard and then calling it and then reviving something else. Like, there's a lot of implications for this card in premium, and I don't even play this deck in premium that much either, so it's like, this is going to be something interesting that needs to be explored. So that's the grade 1 order, but then they showed 2 orders for this one build, and so this one is Grief, Despair, and Rejection, which is, man, that's a name, and this art is also quite the banger as well. And so this one says you have to count +1 to play this, and if your Vanguard is Mysterious Reign Spiritualist Zorga, you choose 3 of your units and they get power plus 10k until end of turn. Count +1 for essentially a front trigger is pretty damn good. Like, it's of course relegated to this specific build of Stoicheia, but this suddenly like fixes any kind of power issues, because count +1 for plus 10k, like, that's like Brad Black's first skill basically. It's really nice, and it can basically allow them to explore any kind of other space with the cards, because the power up of the deck will basically be in this order, which is pretty easy to play with because it's a grade 3 order that you can also recycle probably, or recycle in other ways, which we'll take a look at in a second. But before we take a look at the ways that this order is used, or these orders actually I should say, let's look at the grade 1, 2, and 3. So the grade 1 is Ranker Chain. I think it's Ranker, not Rancer. Vanguard circle once per turn, Soul Blast 1. Draw 2 for Soul Blast 1. Choose up to 1 order card from your hand, discard it. And if you did not discard, choose 2 cards from your hand, discard them. So this is already like, okay, you can Soul Blast 1 to +2 on your turn 1. Literally, like, you go second, right? Because going second, you draw more cards in overdress. So you have your 5-card hand, you draw for turn, then you ride, and then because you went second, you draw again, then you Soul Blast 1, draw 2, discard an order, attack, drive check. 8 cards in hand on turn 1. That's pretty good. And then if you don't have an order to discard, you discard 2, so you basically make up for what you drew, and you Soul Blast it as well. But keep in mind, this is the kind of like Granblue themed deck of Stoicheia. The grade 1 order literally says to bring back units from the drop zone. And so you can either discard pieces that you're going to bring back later on with your effects, or you can discard the order that, hint hint, you can also use from your drop zone too. And then as a rearguard circle skill, if you played an order this turn, get +2k power. So a lot of these grade 1s seem to be gaining +2k power, so that might be like the power line generation, or just like having a 10k booster is probably going to be helpful, because as long as you have like a 13 or 15k attacker in front of it, you can make magic numbers, so of course that's gonna be pretty good. Then the grade 2, which I really like this guy's art. Like, this still resembles Granblue, but it's like an extra feel, like chest, like skull, and everything like that looks insane. So this is called Black Tears Husk Dragon. When this unit is placed on Vanguard Circle, choose up to 1 normal order from your drop and put it into your hand. So because you discarded 1 order from your hand, going, you know, from that grade 1, you can then recycle it into your hand, and then you can immediately use it, such as the Spiritual Body Condensation, to Soul Blast 1 and bring something back. So you can even Soul Blast the grade 1 that you wrote earlier and call it out. Now that grade 1 says if you played an order this turn, it gets +2k, so you're sitting on 10k Vanguard and 10k Rearguard that can both swing into your opponent's face and start pushing damage. So I really like the little synergy we see here just with these very few cards, and the fact that, you know, you set up your drop, you draw extra cards, and on top of that you get to essentially recycle the orders as well is really, really nice. I'm assuming they're going to potentially print like a rearguard circle on place recycle order into this deck as well, but even if not, that's not really a problem because we have the main grade 3 of this deck, which is Mysterious Rain Spiritualist Zorga. So like I said, this is Ocean Jace, Ocean Man, and of course he brings with himself a new mechanic, Alchemagic. So Vanguard Circle Continuous, when you would play a normal order, so not a blitz order like Quick Shield, when you play a normal order, you can bind a normal order with a different card name from your drop and Alchemagic. And this says you combine the costs and add the effect to the back. What it means by add the effect to the back, it means like add it to the back of the text. So not to the back row or anything. I was confused by that at first, but add it to the back of the text of that order that you played. That's kind of what that means. So like, let's say you play Spiritual Body Condensation and then you use Alchemagic to combine it with Grief, Despair, and Rejection. That Grief, Despair, and Rejection gets added to the bottom of the first order's text. So you resolve the top first to you know, revive something, and then you resolve the bottom to power up 3 units by 10k. And they kind of like explain this as well in different slides. So they basically say when a normal order is played, you can bind another normal order from your drop that is of a different name, and then you basically combine both of them. So as you can see here, you do the effect of the one you normal played first to Soul Blast 1 and then Counter Blast 1, and first you call one from drop and give it 5k, and then you choose 3 units to give them plus 10k. So if you did it in a different order and played the grade 3 order first, you'd first have to power up 3 units by 10k by counterblasting 1, and only then you get to Soul Blast 1, revive something, and give it a 5k. So the order really matters, and you have to be careful with that as well. Now the second effect of Zorga that I forgot to talk about was Vanguard Circle once per turn, counterblast 1, and revive a card from your drop zone to a rearguard circle. That is really, really good. That's all I can really say. This is incredibly good because counterblast 1 to revive something is like the most staple level of ability for a Granblue based deck, and it just like falls in line with the kind of like cost to efficiency ratio of most Granblue effects. Of course, stuff like Night Rose revives 2 and stuff like that, but when you look at stuff like Columbard, it's also like counterblast 1 revive something. And so you now have counterblast 1 to revive something on the grade 3 and Soul Blast 1 to revive something on the order. So you can basically revive up to 2 things per turn, which I think is really, really nice. A little bit of Q&A for this new mechanic. So When Mysterious Rain Spiritualist Zorga is not on the field, can you Alchemagic? No, you cannot. Alchemagic can only be used when the skill of Mysterious Rain Spiritualist Zorga is active, so it's very specifically based on him. If you use Alchemagic, will it be regarded as playing an order card twice? No, it will not. An order card can only be played once per turn. This cost and effect of the order card bound is added, so you play that order and then the effect of the order bound is added to it. So it explains the step-by-step here as well. When using Alchemagic, how should the process of binding an order card, paying the cost for 2 order cards and the 2 effects be resolved? Please follow the steps shown below. Specify that you're playing a normal order from hand. So first you play it from hand. At that moment, bind a normal order from your drop. So then you bind it. Pay the cost for both the normal order played from hand and the normal order bound. So first you pay the cost for the one played from hand and then the one that is bound. Resolve the effects of the normal order played from hand, then the normal order bound. So the resolution is very important in terms of how you order it. So that's super important. Now, what I also really like about this entire build of Stoicheia is, of course, it's got Granblue themes in it, which is also really cool. Like, I've been really enjoying Granblue in standard, but another thing that's really nice is the fact that this is you can only go further with this. Like, every order that they print, whether generic or for Stoicheia, is gonna bring the potential of this card more and more and more. And, you know, Solom, I think, said in his video too, this card is like, you can't power creep it either, because you can only, this grade 3 will always be basically like the main card for this deck, and you can just keep supporting it by printing whether new orders or cards that function off of being called by an order or something like that, or whatever else. You know, they can explore the space as much as they want to, and it's such an interesting build as well, because I think that this just makes it explores a space that has never really been explored before, and I really like that they're doing that. Like, they're basically treating the overdress format as a completely different game, and I think so should we, because I also look at like regular like premium and vmium as a different game basically, because like just having the ride deck and the nations completely changes everything that you know about Vanguard, and they're exploring that space more and more and more and just going crazy with it, and I love it. I really like the fact that they're offering a completely new experience to what Vanguard has the last 10 years basically. Some of the starter decks obviously are more in line with more traditional Vanguard, but these things that they've been exploring here with like the Branke starter deck and this feels a lot more of like completely new explored space that has never been touched before. And that's not all, because they also showed Sentinels. Now, when they first revealed this, a lot of us thought, okay, these will be double rares and they will be draw Sentinels, but they're not. They're not double rares, they're only rares, which means they're going to be really easy to get, which is absolutely fantastic. And they are worded a little bit differently, and they will be the same for all nations. So as an example, here is Mr. Twin Buckler Dragon, which is the Dragon Empire one, who says Sentinel. You can only have up to 4 cards of Sentinel in the deck. That's the same, that hasn't changed, but it's a grade 1. It's a grade 1 with 6k power. The ones in the starter decks were 7k, so they're pushing it down to 6k. They're not letting it be a draw PG, because now we have a lot of the space in the deck build to, you know, make use of, because we have the ride deck, so we can be as wonky with our grade ratios as we want. But this one has a different wording. When this unit is put in Guardian Circle, choose one of your units, and it cannot be hit until end of that battle. If your hand has 2 or more cards, choose a card from your hand and discard it. So what this means is, as long as when you play this, if you have 2 or more cards in hand, like 3 or 4, whatever, you'll have to discard 1 for the cost, just like a regular perfect card. However, if you only have 1 card in hand at the time of using this, you don't have to discard. And what's also cool is that, let's say like you have 2 Twin Buckler Dragons in hand and nothing else, and your opponent's attacking you for the last 2 attacks, you can just guard with this, PG, without paying any discard, because you don't have to, and then PG again, because again, you don't have to discard anything if you have only 2 cards in hand at the time of using it. So this is really, really nice, and I like this design space a lot. I personally was hoping for draw trigger PGs myself, and there's still of course the option to play them in premium, but I think for overdress, I think I quite like this, because again, we're no longer bound to be playing like 12 or 14 grade 1s to kind of like fit the deck ratios in order to ride smoothly. We can play 20 grade 1s if we want to, or 8 if we want to, and 4 of them will be PGs, and that's just how it is. And I think there's nothing wrong with that, to be honest. I think that's honestly really, really cool. And the fact that they're rares makes sense, because like I've always found it weird how you basically can't play Vanguard without PGs, but this entire time they've been like double rares. You know, they've always been double rares. They've always been not the most obtainable, despite being literally the most essential card in order to build any deck in Vanguard. Like, you can't play any deck without PGs, unless you're playing like now crit Sentinels, which are kind of like the trade-off, right? Because some decks just, you know, they don't need the PGs, right? But on a general basis, most decks did until now, and so I'm really glad that they're way more accessible now too, with cool effects like this. And so here are the 4 different ones for the remaining nations that aren't Dragon Empire. So from left to right, we have the Dark States one, which is the Recusal Hates Dragon. Then the Brandgate one is, I think, Violates Dragon. I think that's what that says. The Keter Sanctuary one, literally a horse, is Aegismere Dragon. And the Stoicheia one is Lana Plurivent Dragon, something along those lines. But they all do the same thing, but these are just all the different ones from the different nations. They all look pretty similar, to be honest, so I guess it makes sense that, you know, that's the kind of look they're going for. And of course, for next week, we're finding out more of the new unexplored aesthetics for the booster set, and this time it's going to be Dark States as well as Keter Sanctuary. So Dark States is going to be Rabbit Tank Best Match for Barrow Magnus, I think that's what he's called. But man, at first I looked at him and was like, oh, this looks kind of cool, and then I looked at the blue and the kind of like pinkish red on his armor, and I was like, uh-oh, it's Kamen Rider time, baby. And then the Keter Sanctuary one is called Hexa Orb Sorceress. So this looks kind of like a Magus card, sort of like mixed with new technology, sort of. So it's pretty interesting. There's a lot of different aesthetics going into this, but I feel like it resembles Magus the most. But man, the more I look at the Dark States guy, I really, if the playstyle is cool, I genuinely might build this. It looks really nice. So just from the art alone, I'm already kind of sold on this. But we're gonna find out 7 new cards next week on Tuesday, so that's gonna be really interesting. And hopefully the week after, we find out the other Brandgate aesthetic, which looks very Star Vader-y. All right, so that's basically it for this week's sort of overdress information that we've gotten from Bushiroad. It really feels like every day now is just news and new cards and stuff like that. And hopefully you guys like this format of sort of like summarizing the stuff from the previous week and then talking about the reveals as well. I think that it's a good way to keep track of everything, and you know, that way people that maybe aren't, you know, always active in the community every single day can kind of catch up on everything that's being revealed as well. Anyway, that's going to be it for me today. Hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you want to pick up any overdress product, you want to pre-order starter decks or the booster set or anything like that, you can do so at parkage.com. Use code DifferentFight for a 5% discount at checkout. But that's going to be it for me today, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.